Hello, I'm Scott Tennant. I'm here at LA Classical Guitars, more fondly known as LACG, in beautiful downtown Pasadena, California. I am playing today a beautiful Hanson guitar, the N3, absolutely gorgeous. And as I'll be doing today, I'll be playing other pieces like that first one I just played, called Prelude de Adios by Alfonso Montes. It has a lot of beautiful sustained chords in it, and I'm finding that that's what this guitar really does so well. In a piece like this, the Prelude de Adios, it's really important to get a good balance between the melody and the accompaniment. So it's very, I'd say, common and too easy for us to just play everything kind of the same volume, even though we really think we're bringing out the melody. So for instance, we have it starts with this beautiful intro. So you have that level you've set, and then the melody has to really come out. But you don't do it by slamming it. What you do is at that point you bring the accompaniment down a bit. So if I'm going and now I can come down when the singer comes in. I'm really playing that really quiet. So you can see how quiet I'm coming down with the accompaniment. That is a good technique to keep in mind whenever you want to bring out a melody, is don't necessarily play the melody harder and with more force, but to bring back everything else around it. Now I'll be playing another piece by Alfonso Montes called Floreando. This is actually a tremolo study that he wrote for me some years back. I was looking for different tremolo studies, and I asked some composer friends of mine, and he graciously accommodated me. So what's different about this, though, is that your usual tremolo is on one string. These three fingers, that is. Those of you who are guitarists, I don't need to explain that to you. But what makes this different is that there's no real melody. It's just this sort of constant flow and changes, very smooth changes of harmony. Hence the title Floreando, which means flowering or blossoming. So the tremolo here is this. So I'm still keeping P-A-M-I, P-A-M-I. So that entails bringing the M finger back one string. The way I had to practice this was to really make sure I was putting down each finger well in advance. The strings still ring, so I'm not cutting anything off, but that's it very slow. So one little secret I found, anybody who might be wanting to work on this, I found myself that thinking more of the M finger throughout really helps, because otherwise it can get really unbalanced with the heaviness on the A finger, because that top string is what's really played the most. So I just kind of keep my focus on the M finger. I pretend I'm doing this. I'm not really, but that's what I pretend. So here's Floreando. And now I'll play a piece by a good friend, Andrew York, and this is called Squares Suspended. It comes from a set of pieces called Woven Harmony. This was written for a good friend of his, or actually his wife, who was a weaver, literally a professional weaver, which you don't come across that much these days. And he was really fascinated watching her in this weaving process, and so there are a lot of terms that weavers use that he kind of incorporated into the titles of each piece. Squares Suspended is a technique, I think, where they weave squares and then later weave them back together to form a larger pattern. So beautiful, beautiful piece. I chose this because it has a lot of sustain, and I think it really amplifies the beautiful qualities of this guitar. What I'm finding I really love about this guitar, again, thanks to Hanson and Matt, who made this available to me before we did this recording. It was nice to be able to play it and practice on it a bit. And in fact, I haven't even changed the strings. I've had it for about a month, and the strings really aren't dying. Maybe they're just now starting to die a little bit. But they've maintained their brilliance, and the guitar has just, now, I'm of the belief the guitar has to be played to kind of open up, wake up a little bit. So out of the box, I did have to play it for a while, but one thing I'm struck about this guitar is that it has such a beautiful sustain. And as I get older, you know, when I was younger, it was really fun to flex your technique muscles and do all the fast stuff, and which I did, and it was fun. But as I get older, I just want to hear really beautiful tones and notes, and not end up like this person. Anyway, I was saying that you know, the sustain on this guitar is really incredible. I like that because whatever you play down here, I'm a different tuning, but you know, you can play up here the same chord There it is. I'm in a different tuning, but you can play the same things up here and they sustain equally well. A lot of guitars that you play that have that sort of a, you know, a sports car feel, where you can play everything is very fast response and everything, and you can play things that are pretty fast, but they lose sustain. And I played a few of those great guitars that do have that punch. But after about the 5th, 6th, 7th fret, for sure, they lose the sustain. And there are some things I've done in the past, recordings, where I've been playing on such a guitar, and I had to finger everything down here. I had to refinger all my stuff down here as much as possible. And on this guitar, I feel I can play anywhere, and I don't have to compromise. So I'm really, really appreciating that about this guitar. So, and it's only going to develop more. So, bravo Hanson. In this mini concert, I've chosen pieces that I thought would highlight that sustain and the warmth of the guitar. And I'm going to play now a piece by Robert de Visee, who is a very well, a lot of us guitarists play his music. There's a lot out there for Baroque guitar, and there's a lot out there too for theorbo, which is it's basically if you took a harpsichord and put it on your knee. It's this huge, long, beautiful, resonant instrument. And he was a virtuoso on that instrument as well, and published a lot of things. That his own pieces, as well as arrangements of other popular pieces by Francois Couperin and the like. But this is actually his original piece. It's called La Muzette. Muzette is a dance that typically had sort of a drone in the background. Maybe a hurdy-gurdy would be playing this drone, and then you'd have a melody on top, or bagpipes a lot of times. But this is his own take on it. It's just really beautiful, and this is a transcription from the theorbo by Alexander Dunn, a good friend of mine. I'm tuned in G and C. I'll play a piece now on this entry-level N100 model from Altamira. And I'll play a Pavan by Milan. Well, I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, and my brother and I always had toy guitars, these little plastic guitars. Back then you could buy a little toy, I'm not sure if it was a toy ukulele or a toy guitar, but they were plastic and you can buy them at the grocery store. And so our parents would buy, my brother and I both one, and we'd break it. The next year, Christmas, we get another one, break it. And this went on for a while. So finally on my 6th Christmas, I got a real guitar. It was a small size guitar steel string that they got at the local music store. And I saw that under the Christmas tree and I was just so happy. But my mother said, okay now Scott, we bought this guitar for you. You're gonna take lessons. And you know, I couldn't think of that. I mean, I can play this. Come on, I don't need any lessons. I'm good. I don't need the manual. Just give me the guitar, I'll play it. I was convinced that, but they said, no, if you don't take lessons, we'll take it back and return it. I said, okay, I'll take lessons. So I started taking lessons at the local music store. This wonderful woman named Wanda Bruning, I still remember her name. And they didn't normally take kids that were 6 or 7, but they took me, and it was great. You went through the whole blisters thing, getting the blisters on the fingers, and I do remember though at the time, I would practice on the end of my dad's bed, and my mom would pull out the sock drawer and put the music in there, and that was my music stand. And so my task was to practice 15 minutes straight. And it was so hard because it was the end of, I was home from school. I could hear my friends outside saying, Scott, come on out. Oh. So my mom made me stick to it, and it was tough. But I'm so glad she did. Had she not made me practice those 15 minutes and then a half an hour and then 45 and an hour, etc., I probably wouldn't have, because I just felt that, well, I can come back to this and play at any time. But the lessons, of course, that was crucial, and my parents were right. So anyway, when I was, there were these little classical melodies in my book, my music, whatever book it was I had, like a Strauss waltz and things like that. So I asked my teacher, I said, what kind of music is that? That's just so different. And she said, well, that's classical music. And she said, there's a style of guitar called classical guitar. Unfortunately, I don't teach that, but it's something you might want to look into. So anyway, I did, and when I was 11, my parents bought me a nylon string guitar from a wall on a music store, and I started taking classical lessons when I was 11. And got really, really, really serious about it, you know, because when you see progress in anything, you want to continue it, right? So, and then, you know, classical guitar. Then when I was 13, I met Pepe Romero at a concert, and backstage, my mom asked him, "Where do you teach, or do you teach?" And he said, "Well, yes, I teach at USC, but I also teach a master class every summer in Houston, Texas. So here's a number and name, and give them a call." So the next summer, I was there every summer from age 14 through my freshman year in college. I went to his master classes, and then that's really where I got ultra serious. In the meantime, in high school, though, I had studied flamenco with Juan Serrano, who was living in Detroit at the time. And it was so lucky to have him there, because he was the real deal. I mean, he was, you know, old school, traditional. That's where I actually learned to play like this on the right leg, because he insisted we play like that. And I just got used to it. I was playing when my friends were practicing in their garage with their rock bands. I was accompanying dancers, and it was a lot of fun. And then Juan Serrano left town, and I took over playing for the dance company. And then went to college and had to sell my flamenco because I needed a better classical guitar, etc. So that's kind of where I started. I would like to finish with playing a piece that I arranged a long time ago. It's a song my father used to sing all the time. And I like to, of course, remember him when I play this. It's called Wild Mountain Thyme, or Will You Go, Lassie, Go? So in college, I was fortunate enough to have a lot of work just playing gigs, you know, in restaurants, a local restaurant here called the Raymond, that myself, everybody in the LA Guitar Quartet worked in that restaurant at one point or another. And so, you know, it was a good place to run repertoire, frankly, just to practice. And so I ended up doing a lot of just sort of on the fly, by ear kind of arrangements. And this popped into mind because my dad my mom was on the of Serbian descent. My dad was Scottish descent, so he was very proud of that. And he'd always sing these Scottish songs and recite Robert Burns. I guess when you're Scottish, that's what you do. We had music in the house all the time playing, and my dad, who wasn't a good singer, but he had a couple songs he sang, and this was one of them. Will You Go, Lassie, Go is the other title, Wild Mountain Thyme, is probably the best known title. And I just had it in my ear my whole life. And I just kind of started playing it at these gigs, these casual gigs. And I just kind of landed on D major, very, very easy. There's no creativeness to it at all. It's just the melody and the harmony. And so a long, long, long time ago, I decided to play it as an encore. And it just felt good. And, you know, thinking of my dad, everybody, I didn't tell them the story, but everybody really loved it. And how can you not? I mean, it's such a beautiful tune. So, you know, I think I've played that in every single concert I've ever done, either programmed or usually at the end as an encore. But it's just nice to kind of touch base with who you are. And that piece is really, I'd say, the piece that describes musically who I am. And it's nice to just connect to that anytime I can. And I never get tired of the melody. So that's why I play it. So we're at a huge, huge table with lots of family, and I'm sitting at the end of the table with my brother and my parents. And as there were all over the city, of course, there are these people who are asking for money, and they get pretty close. They kind of bump up against you and kind of get in your face. And there was this old woman who had a sort of babushka, you know, this scarf on, and was hovering around our end of the table. And she kind of kept her, she just stayed there though. And so she stayed there so long that my parents totally forgot about her. And then she came over and she just gently took my hand, and nobody noticed, and she just, it was like literally kind of under a spell. This is just so strange to admit. But then I got up and she just started walking down the street with me. You know, just we're not running, we're just walking down the street. She has my hand and I'm just like, okay. And so we get quite a ways down this long block, and suddenly I hear, Scott, where's Scott? And they're calling me, and one of my mom's relatives who worked for the government at that time, they look around the corner and say, he's there. So they're running after me and they get me. And I'm just about to turn the corner with this old woman, and my parents grab me, and this person takes the woman and starts, you know, cussing at her in Serbian. Turns out right around the corner, there were like 20 in a couple caravans, you know, with the doors open, just where I would have been in the caravan and gone. And it's just so surreal to talk about because it actually happened. And I was like in a trance. And so, yeah, I was kidnapped by a gypsy, not gypsies.